You guys have been beyond patient, but we are finally back on the F40 project this week, and I've got the A-pillar bars bent up in Docal R8 and tacked into the car. We've got an entire front suspension jig underneath the front of this thing. We've got suspension bolted to it. We've got air jacks to fit to this thing, and on top of that, every bit of CAD progress that I've worked on this car since February is now gone. Huge problem. Disaster. I don't know what to do about it, but needless to say, we got a ton of work to do in this episode, so let's get to it. All right, so let's talk about the parts that I have here and what on earth it is that we're trying to accomplish. I'm gonna do my best to explain this. We touched upon it in the last episode, but we are trying to essentially transpose 458 Challenge EVO suspension onto a custom tube chassis, and that means that all of these components need to be located correctly in 3D space. And we know where in 3D space that is because we 3D scanned everything, brought it into CAD, put it under the car, figured that stuff out. Now the question is, how do we physically locate all of the suspension pickup points where they need to be in reality? And so what I've got here is essentially a jig. I want something to bolt all of our suspension pieces to that will put them where I know is the exact right place, and then we can begin building chassis around it. Now obviously these are just big metal X's. They're gonna go between the actual important parts here. Let's unbox those, and I'm gonna, again, do my best to explain how they actually work and what we're gonna do with them. Now, what I've designed here is the single most rudimentary way to do this. It is not fancy by any measure. It's the brute force approach, but the more I thought about it and the more time I spent in CAD trying to decide how to do this, I realized there's just no point in trying to make it fancy or crazy or more special because it's literally only serving one purpose. It's just putting parts where they need to go until we build a chassis around them to hold those parts up. Obviously, we've got two plates here, and these represent each side's suspension mounts. They don't exist yet. That's what we're trying to get to. And so these holes that exist in this plate are where the control arms would actually bolt to. So you can actually see I've got these big holes here so that the bearings will clear, and then these will actually bolt to this plate. And once we bolt the spindle up to it, that's like where this goes in 3D space. It's correct height off of the table, and with all these pieces that we have in the middle, it's gonna be correctly spaced side to side, assuming I got my measurements correct, fingers crossed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get all this stuff kind of mocked up. We're gonna get it all welded up. What I've got is some supports here. So these are actually on the wrong sides, but these kind of get welded into place just to give the whole thing a bit more stability because it's gonna be holding up some weight. And then I've got these major cross braces that are gonna go across that kind of locks them together, keeps them square, keeps them from doing this. Everything should work out correctly. I feel loosely confident in it. We've got holes on these that are correctly located. These are gonna get bolted to the table, and it's all just kind of exactly where it needs to be. That's the idea. That's why we have a fixture table. So let's get this whole thing kind of put together. I got quite a bit of welding to do, or at least some tack welding, and then we'll slide it under the car. We'll see if we can bolt some control arms to it and hopefully have suspension on the car. It's really not on the car at all, but hanging on the table at least. So first things first, I made a rookie mistake again. I ordered everything in the wrong material thickness, which means that my tabs and slots protrude the back side of the part, and that's not going to work because our pieces will foul each other. So just like our engine stand, I'm 2 for 2 now. I got to buzz these down, get everything to fit the way that I want it to. Sure, it really should only take a couple seconds. We'll buzz them, get everything kind of tacked together, make sure it's all square and set up. We'll weld it up, put it under the car, and that should be that. Now, it's probably not perfectly square, but my thought process is that the chassis table should square it up. We can get it square once it's over there instead of like trying to go crazy right now. And I just like want to make sure it's going to fit. I'm wondering, honestly, if my material thickness, only a few of you will probably understand what I'm saying, but if my material thickness was on the outside of the part or the inside of the part, and if it's on the inside of the part, these plates might be, I guess it would be 1/16 of an inch too close together. Now, does that affect anything? No, because we're going to have like shims that allow us to adjust that, but it might make the initial part of this weird. We got to find out by putting it on the table. Looks like it fits to me. It bolts in, which is good. It looks a little far forward, but when I compare it to the CAD file, it looks accurate, so we're gonna run with it. I think probably what makes the most sense, as uncomfortable as it will be, is just weld it in the car. Instead of pulling it back out, welding it, having it move around, if I can just bolt it to the table and then weld it, why not? So, we'll get under the table, we'll bolt it down, we'll get it welded up, and then bolt some parts to it, I guess. Now, I think I'm just going to get the top welds on those things once the hood is off and there's more access to it, but I don't think it's going anywhere. It seems pretty solid. I'm kind of eager to bolt some parts to it and show you guys what this is actually supposed to do. Hopefully it actually works. As you can see, we've got holes cut out so that the bushings on these control arms actually fit and clear, because the mounts on the actual Ferrari 458 have clearance for that, and in order to bolt them to something, we had to make clearance here. Everything else, all the bolt positions, the angles of the control arms, they're all based exactly off of the 3D scan from that 458 Challenge EVO. So this suspension currently is at full droop. I have it propped up a little bit, so it's not perfect, but this should be really accurate for where we want all these parts to be. Now the idea, once we have this stuff actually bolted together, is that we can begin locating tubes inside of the car. They're going to pass behind these mounts or behind these control arm pickup points, and then we can easily design mounts to pick them up. At some point, yes, I will have to cut these plates out of here. I don't think that there's going to be an easy way to get them out, but that's not a big deal. We'll get the plasma cutter out if we have to. For now, these are going to be a perfect jig to actually hold this entire system exactly where it needs to be. We now have at least like a facsimile of the correct suspension geometry under the front of this car. We know where the control arms, the uprights, the hubs, all of it's going to be located. Now we can make sure we don't foul any of it. We know where the tubes have to be to pick these parts up. This is my method of wanting to do this in a way that makes sense for me. Yes, we could design everything in CAD, but going from CAD to kind of physical tube chassis without CNC bending and all that kind of stuff, which is not the route I really want to go. I want to build this myself. I think this is the way to do it. So with this, I do need to get suspension for the other side of the car. I only have the driver's side at the moment, but we have it mocked up. We can start designing. I guess all that's left is we got to do the rear. So let's go to the back of the car. Now, at the back of the car, there is a ton of rust we need to clean up off the chassis table, which is a sign of the fact that this project has sat longer than I wanted it to. There's a ton of humidity in the air here. We're only like a half mile from the water. It's directly that way. There's a ton of salt in the air. And basically any raw metal surface rusts in here pretty quick. And I don't want a rusty table. I want to get it cleaned up before we're actually working. I still have to design all the rear suspension parts, plates, things like that, like we did up front, but we got to get some cleanup. I'm going to use some OSFO, I think is what it's called. See what we can wipe off. It's pretty like aggressive chemical. And then if we have to attack it with the DA, we will. So while I'm tackling the rust on this table, it's probably worth diving into that idea that the F40 is a little bit more behind than I thought that it would be at this point. And That's largely because of the commitment and opportunity that we have to take the 244 GTK racing this year. I didn't really expect that to be on the table when the F40 kicked off, but when Falcon put that opportunity in front of us, that's something I had to dive into. We built the 244 to go racing, and to get it out to these tracks and get to run it the way that we have, to learn about the project, to make it better, it's all stuff that we're gonna get to bring back to the F40, and so while there is a delay on the project, I'm really happy that it's where it is as a whole. I know that you guys probably want more F40 episodes as we're going through this, and it's definitely not as far along given that we are deep into the summer of 2025 at this point, but we've still been making progress behind the scenes, and that's also kind of why we're pivoting to an episode that's in this format. You guys, if you watch everything here, you probably have noticed this episode is definitely filmed and recorded differently, but it's going to allow us to try to put more content together and make more progress on the car, spend a little bit time less shooting and a lot less time in the edit bay. And in turn, I'm hopeful that as we continue to race the 244 through the rest of the year, we're also going to make more progress on the F40. And then once racing season ends, because we only have a couple of events left, it's going to be full focus on the F40. And those of you that have been asking, we're making progress on the Audi in the background as well. All right, I think that's probably good enough. Table's clean enough to work on. There's gonna be some more sanding. It's not perfect. More than anything, we gotta keep it from rusting immediately now that we've taken some of that mill scale off, but there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can use, like WD-40. You can use, the OSPO stuff should actually put some sort of inhibitor on it. You can use linseed oil. I've been there, done that. Wouldn't suggest it, but it does work really well. I'm probably just going to use some Bow Shield because all of our H&R coilovers come with a bottle of it, and so I have a ton of it sitting around, and that inhibits corrosion pretty well. But ultimately, I just don't want it to rust any further. And for anybody out there that's going to complain about DAing the surface of our precision table, it's a few thousandths. It's not going to hurt anything. It doesn't need to be that precise. So I've got good news and I got bad news. The bad news is that I did a bunch of work over the weekend that Anthony was not here to film. The good news is I got a bunch of work done, and you guys have already seen most of it already. So I went and put both of the A-pillars in the car. I bent these up in Docal R8, our actual final tubes. The stuff we were using before was DOM, just test material. There's a lot of trial and error. I wasted a lot of tube getting this right because the Docal has a major difference in the amount of spring back the tube has. But both A-pillars are just right. They're in place, they're tacked in, I'm happy with them. I've got a dash bar, at least temporary dash bar in place here. That's also kind of finalized, set up. I've got a little bit of tension on it until I kind of get things tacked into place. And then I have a diagonal in here that clearly goes to the middle of the top of the car, which is not what I think I'm going to do ultimately. I'm having to play with different abstract ideas instead of a normal setup because the engine has to come through the main hoop ever so slightly. So I can't just do an X, a normal X. It's either got to be an inverted V to the center, which is not the best idea. And the other option is to do a shallow X where the X kind of terminates at these bends. That's probably what I'm leaning towards, but I'm experimenting. I'm going to play around with some stuff. And so, A-pillars, done. Now I'm trying to decide exactly how to do the front end of this thing. Let me show you where I'm at. Now, forgive the long-winded explanation, but this is where my brain is at, and I'm talking my way through this thing. First problem is that master CAD file that has everything we've been working on this year for this car, including this entire structure. That file got corrupted or deleted or something. Autodesk hasn't been able to help. I'm now back to a save file from February, so I can't even show you guys this stuff in CAD to work with it. I'm really upset. Got to figure that out. So right now I'm doing this the old-fashioned way, and I got to plan how I'm going to get from this structure back here, essentially this lower kind of bottom chassis part, or more importantly the A-pillars, how we're going to come down and we're going to get to these pickup points where the control arms are mounted, and then out to the front of the car, most specifically where the hood pivots, those hinge points at the front that we built this front support for a number of episodes ago. That's where the frame is going to terminate and also mount things like underbody, splitter, things like that. What I'm thinking at the moment is whether to build the front part of this car entirely out of tube, or if I make it out of the same flat stock for the lowest level kind of structure. And I'm leaning towards the flat stock for now because as I kind of plan this out, it more or less has to be, this is turned up on end, but you have to bear with me. It has to be at the same height as this in order to be level and pick up the lower control arms. So I think it makes sense. It'll be easy to attach kind of the flat floor to. So right now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of our same square stock here and go on and build kind of a front substructure, put it in the car, and see if I like the way that it fits in here, and decide, once I have a mock-up, if I like that more or if I want to go to tube or how I want to do this. Right now I'm kind of winging it and just kind of feeling it out, seeing what I like the way that it looks and what I think is going to have like kind of a better finished result. So let's see how this thing's going to fit in the front of the car. I don't really know what's going on, but this material's welding like it's contaminated or like I don't have gas, but I do. So I stopped kind of early because it keeps like exploding and getting gross. But I'm going to remake it out of fresh material later. Right now, I just want to see if this is even going to do what I want it to do, look the part. And I guess to be clear, like this is going to need so much triangulation. This is essentially just the most foundational aspect of the structure that's going to go from that main square at the base of our roll cage structure to the front of the car, and the hood hinges will come off the front of this. It's not going to look good when we put it in there. There's going to be a lot of work that goes into really making this look elegant. Right now it's going to look more like Lincoln logs than anything else, so bear with me. This isn't kind of like the ultimate end solution here. We're brainstorming. Hopefully it fits in the car. So truth be told, just by happenstance, this is the height that these pieces are at with these kind of supports turned vertically underneath them. And it's not intentional, but it really lets us see kind of where this is going to sit, how it's going to sit. In order to support this, to actually get it set up, it should actually be pretty simple. Terminating these directly into the middle of this piece of tube is not elegant whatsoever. It's really not kind of quote unquote the right way to do it. We want it to be tied in to the outside corners, but we're going to triangulate that with diagonal braces that I want to wait till they go in because I want to make sure that the wheels and tires can fully turn. I don't want to put something in place that's going to prevent them from doing that, and this is where that'll happen. So I have some planning to do. I've got to do some work in CAD. I can kind of figure some of that stuff out that way, but ultimately, seeing this in place makes me feel pretty good. I think that it looks good. It passes right between the control arm pickup points. It'll be really easy to kind of build supports up off of this structure that then grab those suspension mounts and give a place for them to actually mount, not to this sheet metal structure that, again, we will get rid of. It's not permanent. This is all going to get cut out. It's just to locate these parts. So I'm liking the way that this is sitting, the fact that it can and will be completely level with the base structure. It'll make kind of getting a floor in place a whole lot more simple than round tube. And while I wish that they lined up with the hinges a little bit better, it's going to be easy to tie them in, easy to mount the radiator to, and honestly, coming from this point here in the middle, we can actually tie into the other side of this with what's going to be kind of some of that floor structure, the seat mount, the trans tunnel. It won't have a trans tunnel, the engine's in the back, but a tunnel to pass coolant lines, things like that through the middle of the car. I think this is going to work out pretty well. I like the idea here. It's going to take a lot more fabrication to do, but I think we're onto something, and then we'll use round tube for the rest of it. Again, the only part of this chassis anywhere that's going to be this rectangular stock is this lowest level structure, the base of the car, mostly so that it's easy to attach things like a floor to, seats to, and like bits of fixturing, things like that. Now, another thing that we're going to need to be thinking about is where to put our air jacks. Our friends at AST sent these over. We've got a set for the F40 and a set for the 244 GTK, and I need to start planning where they're going to go. Now, if you don't know what an air jack is, this gets plumbed to external high-pressure air, and when air enters this cylinder, It extends out the bottom and it lifts the car up off the ground. You've seen them in things like car road racing. They come in, they stick the air hose to the car, the whole car jumps up off the ground. They can change wheels and tires, they can get underneath it, do whatever they need to do. Do we need them? No, but it's an F40 and it's gonna be a race car. We're putting air jacks on it. But that means I need to start thinking about where these are gonna get located because their location actually is really important. If you don't put them in the right spot, even with 500 PSI of air in them, they're gonna struggle to pick the car up, even if it's lightweight. So I need to think about where these are gonna go, whether we're gonna do a 4 air jack setup or a 3 air jack setup. They need to make sure that they're gonna be really integrated into the chassis well. They're not gonna try to tear themselves off the car. They're not gonna foul any components. We can't just put these right here. There's gotta be a fuel cell here on each side. They can't foul the wheels. They need to be kind of, not where the engine's gonna be. But I need to start thinking about them. We're gonna get these drawn up and put into CAD. Of course, I have so much work to redraw everything since February. I'm still bummed about that. I'm gonna be complaining about that in every episode for a while. But I'm excited for these. These are gonna be an awesome addition to the car. Now that's where I'm gonna wrap this episode up, but I'm gonna touch upon my Fusion 360 problem because I mentioned it earlier in the episode. This that I have here on screen is where I got to in February 21st, it looks like. Every bit of progress that I've made on this car, from all of the suspension scans to this design work that we did on the part for the beginning of this episode, all of the structuring, the fixturing, like everything that I have done is gone. I have no idea where it went. I have looked in all of the recovery files. I've been on tech support with Fusion 360 Autodesk. I have gone through the depths of this computer, searching, file recovery, you name it. I have tried it and I have just come up with nothing, and I think that means I'm gonna have to just do it all again, and I'm super bummed about it. If any of you guys have any suggestions that are out of the norm, drop them in the comments. I'm just gonna hope that somehow maybe somebody has some great idea, but I have checked every single thing that pops up on Google, from going through kind of all the crash recovery files and hidden files within system folders, and it's not there. It's not on the cloud. It's not in like some upload queue. It's not offline mode. It's not online mode. It's not in like the web browser saved stuff. It's gone. I don't know where it went. So anyways, that sucks. So like one downside of technology. It's recoverable, but I am really bummed about it. So I've got my work cut out for me. A lot of stuff to redesign before the next episode, but we've got one more out of town race. We're gonna be at Lime Rock this weekend, as you guys are seeing this, right in the middle of August. And then we'll be back and actually really putting the pedal down on this F40. I'm eager to work on it. I know you guys have been patient for these episodes, and I appreciate the support. You guys wanting to see this stuff means a ton to me, and the fact that you guys are watching is why we get to do this. So thank you guys for coming back. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm hopeful that the next one will be just as full, if not more so. We've got a ton of stuff to be doing, a ton of stuff to work on. I got to get my brain working so that we can kind of just focus on what tubes are going to go in next. The tube work is about to like really take off on this series. That's where a lot of the next kind of fabrication work is going to go, is just putting tubes into this thing, from crash structure to all of the front geometry underneath the hood, things like that. Then we're going to start moving towards the back. We're going to get the engine, our mock-up engine, 3D printed so we have an easy way to move it around, that kind of stuff. I'll quit there. Just come back, subscribe if you haven't, watch the rest of the series. We're going to keep the pedal down, and I'll see you guys then.